What's up everyone, I'm Ignatius, and this is my second video in PoE2. This one will cover 6 easy techs you can apply to improve your boss DPS. Before we get started, I'd like to give a quick intro. I'm fairly new to the PoE scene, only about 2 years old, started during the Affliction League. I'm still learning a lot every single day. However, when I find I have learned something well enough that it is worthwhile to share so you also can improve your knowledge, I like to put out a video. As always, if you notice anything that's incorrect or where I can improve, please call me out in the comments and let's learn together. Also, I stream nightly on Twitch and am running a Discord server. Come on by and let's do some PoE stuff together. Okay, before I get into the first tech, I want to mention really quickly why I think teching your DPS for bosses and really just PoE2 at large right now is one of the smartest things you can do. Defense is really difficult in PoE2. The game very much benefits the glass cannon type build. It is really a kill or a key be killed world, and this is so true with the pinnacle boss content. I mean, if you're fighting Arbiter and you get him down to 40%, good luck surviving like the next 2 minutes, but if you can kill him outright over and over and over again, you can just print divs. And so that's really the difference between a lot of the boss fights and in PoE2 in general. These techs that I have come up with, these are approaches that I took to my own build, so that way I could do repeats of the pinnacle boss content, including Arbiter. Most of these concepts can be applied to any build, but certainly these techs apply most easily to the spear-based builds that are dominant this season. Okay. The first tech we are going to discuss today, and probably the most important one, is my favorite item of the .2 season of PoE2 Early Access, a unique Spiritborn crown called the Deepest Tower. Now, I did not discover and apply this item based on my own self-found knowledge of the game. There's a streamer I watch. His name is Glitched. I will link him in the description. He comes up with really creative builds, I've noticed. Also might be. I saw him do this with a different build, and I thought, oh, I could apply that to my build. No problem. So what's going on with this helmet? You know, there's nothing about it that's too exciting. You do get Chaos Res, you do get Max Life, but then you get this very unusual, unscalable value property at the very bottom. Enemies in your presence count as being on low life. If you're a bit new to PoE2 or PoE scene in general, when you see unique items, these are the properties that you want to look at, because unique items, at least ones that are designed not just for like early game progression, they're designed with some type of build combination mechanic in mind. And so in this bottom property here, we see that and we got to be thinking, okay, how do we take advantage of the fact that our enemies will be on low life? So taking advantage of this low life mechanic has 2 obvious use cases for me. The first one is very simple, and there is a skill gem called Execute. Supported skills deal 50% more damage with hits against enemies that are on low life. On pinnacle bosses, you can slot this in wherever you want it to go, and you'll be good to go. With 50% more damage on, whatever skill you're using to try and execute bosses. For mapping and things, I have it on Herald of Thunder. Just think it works better, even though like the low life radius in my presence is really small. I think it just works well in Herald of Thunder for mapping. But yeah, for bossing, slot this in wherever it works best. That's number 1. Number 2 is the skill tree itself. So if you are able to get down here to this wheel, which on the Deadeye Amazon start is, very close. This wheel adds an unbelievable amount of DPS if the enemy is on low life, which, again, with the Deepest Tower, if they are in your presence, they are on low life. So every small node here gives 30% increased damage, which is crazy. I mean, really strong small nodes that people go out to get, 30 is generally the highest. Let's just say, like, you're not going to find many single small passive nodes that give 30 or more. And right here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you've got 2 notables. Finishing blows, you've got 6% increased damage against enemies that are on low life. The stun buildup may not be irrelevant depending on how your pinnacle boss fights are going. So that can help. And then we have Stars Aligned. Damage with hits is lucky against enemies that are low life. So what are the implications of this mathematically? I have 2 ways of sort of demonstrating to you that this is extremely powerful. The first is in my POB. So my POB is set up very, very carefully to help show me the base full DPS of Wind Serpent's Fury against a Pinnacle boss. And I do have the configuration set up to be fighting a Pinnacle boss. And I have it set up with like very reasonable status on my character that's always there when I win Serpent's Fury. You'll see right here we're at 1.6. Let's hike back all these nodes. 898. So it is literally, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 nodes are doubling my DPS against enemies that are on low life. And this, this doesn't include the execute, which we talked about, and one other thing, which we'll talk about. Another way I have to demonstrate the overall power of this is just with some quick math here. So here we go. I was doing a lot of math on stars aligned because I don't think POB is like perfected yet, and I don't know if it's nicely taking into account like frenzy charge usage on skills, especially with Deadeye nodes and the complexity of Wind Serpent's Fury. But yeah, we talked about this 240% increased damage. And what I found out with stars aligned to single node is that generally it is around 20% more damage on everything. And then if you have a lot of lightning damage, which if you're using Ambrosia, you do, the implications of damage with hits are lucky is even better. Okay, the second tech to present today is a skill gem, support gem. It is called Ambrosia. Supported skills consume 20% of your max mana Flask charges, and then gain 3% of damage as extra lightning per mana Flask charge consumed. So how do you leverage this, and how much extra damage does it do? Well, leveraging it is very simple. You just want a Flask with maximum increased charges. I have one here with 70, woohoo, 127 overall. And then we can do the math pretty easily. I'm going to say 120 max charges. This consumes 24 charges, and we get 3% per charge as lightning, so that means 72% damage gained as lightning. And in my POB, I'm calculating this out to about an 18%, more type modifier to DPS. And the way you do this in POB, so you've kind of got everything set up, you've got your full DPS calculator here as well, and then POB doesn't actually recognize Ambrosia the way it's supposed to. So you come over here to custom modifiers, and you can put in your percentage as a stat like this. So if I comment this out, you'll see my full DPS goes to 1.3 mil for the thrust of Wind Serpent's Fury. And if we comment it back in, we go up to 1.6 mil, which again is another, we said stars aligned is about an 18%. Well, this one gem is another about 18%. Super powerful, very simple, and very cheap. The third tech I'd like to cover is a very simple, very cheap, and very common tech. And that is to run some sort of sustained like duration skill. Orb of Storms level 5 tends to be the default because it's only a 34 int requirement, and it's very flexible and very easy to use. And what you do is you combo your skill, we'll just say your Orb of Storms, with especially Font of Rage. You can add some other totem supports like Font of Blood, Font of Mana, but Font of Rage is the big one. And you can put Persistence on it, or whatever other supports you think make sense. But basically what we're doing is we're throwing this down as we charge up near the boss, as the boss is spawning, or before we're about to do our one shot. And what we're getting is attack damage, a more modifier of attack damage per rage. And when we get this up to 30, we are kind of maxed out. And so you can just keep this going during the boss fight, but certainly for most fights, you can charge this up to 30 before you do your primary swing on the boss. Again, how much extra damage is this actually doing? So in POB, under the configuration, we have a rage counter. And right now at max rage, we're at 1.6 full DPS. If we delete it, we go down to 1.2. That is a crazy difference. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that comes out to a 25% more DPS modifier. Also worth mentioning that, if you're just boss farming, you could swap out gems that make sense for mapping and swap in Berserk. Berserk, qualityed up, grants 54% increased rage effect. Again, let me know if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure what this means is 46.2% more attack damage. That's crazy. That's a crazy, crazy buff. Really, really powerful. So yeah, Orb of Storms, Font of Rage, the Berserk gem, really, really great and simple and easy to charge up before you do your one-shot on the boss. The fifth tech to mention, one that I actually don't see used all that commonly, and probably because it's a little bit finicky in terms of actually implementing it, is War Banner. So very quickly, how War Banner works, you gain something called Valor passively when you have War Banner active as a spirit gem, and you gain it in two ways: either killing enemies with attacks or standing near a unique enemy. So depending on the boss you're fighting, this can be extremely powerful if enemies are available to kill it with attacks. But even if it's just standing near a unique enemy, you can also get it charged up. On Arbiter, I usually get it up to about 8 Valor before it's time to really pull the trigger. And qualityed up and at level 17, which requires 90 strength, 90 dex, the aura grants 6% more attack damage, and then per valor you get 12% more aura magnitude. So basically you look down here at the tooltip. As you're standing by the boss, the valor will charge up, and then you push T, slam it down. I put a mag effect on it in case you have to move around. And then in some of the longer fights, like against Olroth, where there are 2 phases, you can get this up to 50 magnitudes of valor before you slam it down for his second phase, which is just ridiculously powerful. In POB, they do have like a banner planting value calculator, and I said I got up to 8 earlier, so I'm at 1.5 mil DPS with 8 valor on the banner planted. Oh wait, sorry, let me do that again. 1.4 mil DPS, an 8 valor banner planted. It goes up to 1.6. That's pretty solid. That's definitely worth noting, worth mentioning. The thing that is crazy though is that if you do get it up to 50 valor, watch the difference. 1.4 DPS up to 2 mil DPS. That is almost a double damage implication. Some of the math here is a little bit confusing to me. I did use AI to kind of grind out some of the calculations and to write a Python script for understanding valor over time. But according to AI and the valor magnitude multiplier, at 0 valor, you're getting 6% more attack damage. So, not irrelevant, but also not incredible. At 50 valor, you're getting 42% more attack damage, which is crazy, crazy valuable. So depending on the battle, War Banner can be, a huge impact down to hardly noticeable impact. I think, even on Arbiter, this is very well worth it. It's good juice, and it comes at a very low cost. The final gem tech I want to mention is Infernal Cry, which you've probably seen show up in tons of builds this season, especially in the .2 season. Again, another simple, easy, low-cost tech to increase your single target damage. I want to talk a little bit about how this works and sort of throw out as a question to the community, how much damage is this really adding for Wind Serpent's Fury? I'm pretty sure it is a lot, and I actually noticed it passes the eye test as being an unbelievable amount of damage, but I don't know for sure exactly how much more damage it is. So this Infernal Cry is level 7, which is going to empower my attacks to have 35% of damage as fire per 5 power of enemies in range, capped at 150%. It says here, unique monsters always have 20 power, so we are guaranteeing 150% of damage as fire damage for the empowered attack. Now here it says empowering subsequent attacks, and with Wind Serpent's Fury, we know we have a 3-phased attack. We have the thrust, we have the serpent times 14, we have the shockwave times, 7, 10, however many times it's hitting while the enemy is in the wall. So really hard for me to understand how this really applies, and maybe somebody in the community notices. The other thing with Infernal Cry is that we're adding premeditation, which gives 15% more damage to the next empowered attack, and then Enraged Warcry, which consumes 10 rage, dealing 30% more damage. I also add in here Raging Cry, which gives us 4 rage per 5 power of counted enemies in range. This should max out your rage when you use it in case it's not already maxed. And then Murderous Intent, which gives the supported skill Culling Strike on the empowerment. I don't have a lot more to say about this damage that is really precise, and I wish I knew. Just basically that we are adding an unbelievable amount of damage by premeditating with this skill, and when I forget to use it or I mistime it, it's very noticeable. In POB, in the configuration, we don't have a nice way to force the bonus from Infernal Cry on. Again, go to custom modifiers and gain 150% of damage as extra fire. If I comment this out, my full DPS is like 1.0. If I comment it back in, full DPS is 1.6. So we're gaining like, I don't know, 60% more DPS by this. But again, I don't know how well this applies to. So like this is for the Wind Serpent's Fury Thrust. And then we have the Serpent, and the Serpent triggers 14 times because we are Deadeye. I just really don't know like how all this applies and how it works. But the long story short is very simple, straightforward, and obvious. Use this skill, and when you forget to use it, you will notice. Okay, the last thing I'm going to mention, and I suppose maybe this doesn't count as an actual tech, but one thing I notice when users ask me questions and I look at their POBs or I look at their skill trees is that I don't think people realize that when you are target farming, you have the ability to manipulate your skill tree in ways that are kind of unrealistic for the broader game, but totally realistic for your target farm. So the case in point for me is Arbiter. When I got my character up to target farming Arbiter, and I bought, entry tokens to do like 100 Arbiter runs in a row, suddenly my skill tree only needs to one-shot Arbiter. I mean, that fight is like so lopsided, it's ridiculous. Probably needs some redesigning. There are only two outcomes: Arbiter one-shots you, or you one-shot Arbiter, and your one-shot needs to happen within like 10 seconds. So those are the parameters of the fight. So the last tech is to say, like, come into your tree, think about your fight, come into your tree, and decide where you can sacrifice one element of your character to build up another element of your character. This is my standard tree for everything. Like I'm just going into PoE and I'm gonna do stuff. Here's my tree. This tree has about 10 defensive nodes that bump up my ES and my evasion in such a way that makes me far more survivable in maps and in expedition logbooks, just general content. For Arbiter, I don't need these things. So when I was doing 100 Arbiter farms, I brought back these nodes, which are amazing nodes. I mean, really powerful. And I went in and allocated everything related to crit damage buffs. And this ended up changing my DPS from like, I think from like 1.4 mil to like 1.8 mil. So yeah, the last tech, again, kind of cheesy, but think about your character, think about the thing you're going to target farm. If you're really just trying to execute one pinnacle boss over and over and over again, there's probably a lot you can do in terms of your tree, maybe even uniques, maybe even specific skill gems to optimize your character for that farm and be more successful more often. Once again, I'm Ignatius. I hope this video has been helpful. Once again, please leave comments for any suggestions or improvements I can make to this information. Good luck out there teching for your bosses, and enjoy this little montage of me one-shotting my favorite bosses in my favorite game. Go PoE 2, and long live the great Sheba in the sky. Alleluia, alleluia.
Yeah! Woo!